Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm.
Well,
I'm.
freezing here.
Yeah. I'm normally down in my studio where I chatted to you the other day, um, but I thought no. Today I'm going to do this in my lounge room, so I've lit the fire.
Oh yeah, fires make things warm.
Oh yeah, toasty
Yeah,
warm.
pretty cold today. But,
It is. I think
I
it's
sort of
going
also
to.
forgot that you'd have the video going.
Oh right, sorry. Yeah.
So good. I remember the last minute.
I'm just
Freezing.
frantically trying to fix up my stream and get you in it.
That's all right.
Um, no, I want that one. And I want no. Does that do it? Yes, it does. There you are. Now I can see you.
Ah.
All right. So how you been?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Just did kids class. This week was all about music and instruments, and I think I called lots of instruments the wrong thing.
Did you call
Like,
a violin a
uh,
clarinet or something?
pardon?
Did you call the violin a clarinet or something? Was it?
Oh, not quite that bad. I couldn't remember, the castanets. I call them maracas, so they're castanets.
Oh right, okay.
Anyway, that's all right.
How are you doing that in a classroom? Like, are you with real
Uh,
people?
no, so usually I supervise kinder gym kind of thing,
Yeah,
which is super easy. You just sort of make sure no one hurts themselves and then
yeah.
um, sing a few songs. But because they don't have the center open, I've been doing like a Facebook Live play school sort of thing.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. I've seen a few of those things around.
Yeah.
So, how are you? So, this vlog that I do is really just a rambling conversation. It's not structured at all.
Yeah.
It's just a chance for me to catch up with people, really.
Yeah.
But it is a vlog about sort of online practice and stuff that people are doing at the moment. So
Yeah. So that's just my bit job, obviously.
yeah,
Um,
but it's still teaching performing arts, isn't it? Or of some kind, isn't it? It's still
yeah. Yeah. And it's actually, I think I talked to you about this the other day that it's quite an adjustment to essentially be performing, like I'm performing for 20 minutes.
yeah,
No response. Most of the time, like occasionally you get a like halfway through or a little comment. But most of the time it's just I can see that there's a few people watching and no one's says anything and there's no feedback.
yeah.
Very different. And so then you're just creating lots of energy with no idea if it's just.
Do you think it's fundamentally different from the classroom? Because I have that too with uni. Like, I'll have a class of 15 people, and whether I'm standing in front of them in a tutorial room or I'm on a Zoom meeting, there's still only really a small percentage of people who genuinely always talking and engaging. Most people sit there quietly.
Yeah, often actually that's true. And
So
you look at people's faces in a performance,
yeah,
it's the wrong thing to do because they always look bored even if they're concentrating.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, maybe it's not much different. I don't know.
It's just whether this forum, like this platform, sort of, is it exposing something? Like, I hear this a lot. Is it exposing something that's always been there, or is this something that's fundamentally different about being online? Like, you know what I mean? Like, does it reveal something?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
right.
mean, I guess you don't know if there's anyone there.
Yeah, yeah.
So there might not be anyone watching, or they might have logged on and then gone into another room. So
Yes.
you just don't really know. Um,
Unless you ask them questions or direct engagement of some
yeah.
kind.
And then they don't respond.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or I always tease my students and say, I'm guessing you've left the room and left your mum to monitor it, so just get your mum to give me a thumbs up, will you? And then the other day, someone's mum was walking through the room, and I said, right, that's it. And she answered back, I heard on the mic. I said, right, that's it. You have to write a 500-word assignment for me. So now I'm expecting something from her mum.
There have been some funny things that.
Have you
Uh,
done much performing online, or has it mainly been teaching? Like, have you pivoted
well,
your stuff online?
no, no. It's just too short a time frame. Like for me, shows take a long time to make anyway. There's a lot of work to do in the
Yeah,
background. So I've just been working on shows that I still plan for the theatre in the hope that at some point we're back in the theatre.
yeah,
I did get asked to do a response um, for a magazine that they usually have a live component, and instead they asked a few artists to make a video response. And so I was playing around a little bit with a animation app.
yeah,
About that, yeah. And so I made a short animation, which I'd been thinking about playing with, and I guess it prompted me to do it more seriously and
yeah,
get someone to make sound and things like that. But yeah, it was a bit of a crisis of confidence before publishing it, because I was a little bit like, I'm not someone who is trained in
yeah,
mark making or drawing, or like I'm not. There were stick figures, but
yeah,
I made a little cute kind of story with them,
yeah.
and it was definitely choreographic, and had
Is
movement
that the
in
one
it.
that's up on your website?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
called a line dance.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Find how can I put it? Like, do you find that you feel you need to have that training? I mean, because there is a shit ton of content out there by people who got no friggin' idea what the hell they're doing, and they just post stuff all the time. I mean, you only have to look at TikTok.
Oh,
Um,
of course. Yeah. I mean, I guess no, you don't need training, and
where do you see the value of it coming in? I guess is like where's
I think what's interesting to me is like I having a sister who's a visual artist, and
yeah,
knowing the training that they do, and sort of around conceptual rigor, but maybe not like there's a lot of visual artists that will try their hand at anything. Like they will just be like, "Yep, I will
yeah,
perform," without having any of that background in performance.
yeah,
So that kind of gave me a little bit of confidence to just try something else. But yeah, I really feel like, and that's maybe just a personality thing, but yeah, my training is in dance and in performance.
yeah,
And, you have enough
yeah,
um, confidence queries about
yeah,
that work that you're making, let alone something that you don't have any
yeah, yeah.
um, understanding of or training in. So I guess that's where it's like, you
It's
know,
it's like that I saw a meme the other day. I'll paraphrase. It says something about only those people with knowledge have doubts, or something along the line. You know what I mean? Like people who have no knowledge have no doubts. They just go in and try it.
yeah, I mean, and it's amazing when you see someone who has so much confidence to just
Yeah,
be like, oh yeah, why wouldn't I do that?
yeah,
It's quite amazing. I have a friend, and he does have knowledge, and does have talent. Like
yeah,
um, he's trained as a musician, went and studied that, and then went and studied dance.
yeah,
But then he ran as a Greens candidate, and he's just
yeah.
like,
Right.
yeah, I'll just do. Why wouldn't I be able to do that? Like the confidence is
Yeah,
just amazing to
yeah, yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Whereas if I was to change careers, I'd feel like, oh, I have to
Start
relearn
again.
it, gain all of that knowledge. So it's just really interesting the different attitudes that
Yeah.
people might have to that kind of
I
thing.
think the online stuff kind of invites a bit of that bravery too. because it's so ephemeral. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is what I find funny about it. It kind of doesn't matter if you make like when you make something and publish something. It can sit there and be a publish like that little thing. It's not going to change again now. But it's also very ephemeral. Like it's like stuff gets because so much content is being posted all the time. Even though it's always there, it's just kind of like.
Yeah, I know. I do find that strange though, because I feel like I definitely feel like that with things like Twitter and it's like this constant stream. So it almost doesn't matter what you say, or then if someone wants to find dirt on you, like
Yes.
this is why politicians get in trouble for something that they've written on their Facebook
Yeah.
5 years ago, because
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
course it's there, it's available, and
Yeah.
it is public, and you need to have the knowledge that you are publishing something.
Yeah.
I found that really challenging when I did some postgraduate study,
Yeah.
and they were very into everyone needing to blog their work and have all the process online accessible.
Yeah.
I felt very conscious of the fact that it's published. I mean, okay, you can't generate. It's incredibly hard to generate traffic to your site.
Yes.
And probably no one will ever see it.
Yeah.
But I just felt really aware of I'm not secretive, but I like to be confident in something before it goes out into the world. I don't know. So
Yeah.
that was really challenging for me.
I
I guess maybe it is partly like if you grow up with every single achievement or moment in your life being documented and put online, you're less sensitive to that. I don't know.
Yeah, there's certainly you're probably in a bit of a middle generation, like the people younger than you, 5 or 10 years younger than you, they've literally, like you said, been brought up in it. Whereas you're probably on the cusp of when it just became prevalent amongst everyone.
Well, I'm very glad that, my very awkward teenage years were free social media. But,
Yeah.
only just, like you say. But
My Liliana went through the photo albums the other day, and I just kind of went, had to have a mental moment of, have I moved all the evidence? And luckily it's hard evidence, and I've put them all in a little thing. But yeah, it was oh God, there's not as much there as I thought there was going to be, because it was pre-social media when you had to get your film developed, and so you didn't take as many random stuff all the time.
yeah.
Do you find that the way, because a lot of online stuff, this is what I've observed, that a lot of online stuff is very, it's very social, it's very giving, it's very, you have to, it's all about creating relationships with people that are, even though they may be a construct, that there's some kind of genuine engagement with other people.
Yeah.
And so, as an honesty and a transparency, do you find as an artist that you struggle with that part of the online relationship?
Yeah.
With
I feel like I'm really different on different platforms, and I don't have very many platforms. So on Facebook, I've got more like your mum and your auntie, and and I also have more social, more like this is my garden and here's a photo of my cat.
Yeah.
And I went through a few years ago, just sort of selecting, some people were friends and some people were acquaintances, because I was sort of like, maybe acquaintances don't need to see me in my bathers or whatever, with my friends. Maybe work people don't need to see that.
Yeah.
So I was quite selective about that. And then on Instagram, when I got Instagram, I decided I just want that to be work.
Yeah.
And I also, partly because I was looking at people's accounts that I was really interested in the art they were making, and then there was 5 photos of going out with your friends and your cat, and I don't know these people. I'm only interested in their art.
Yeah,
So I
yeah, yeah.
wanted my account to just be art. And now I've got, now that they've got stories,
Yeah.
I've got heaps of stories about my cat. He's so adorable. But mostly it's art.
No, you just have to get your cat doing art, and then you
Yeah.
can.
Oh, the cat's been joining in the kids show a little bit.
You put the
Yeah,
put the
but
castanet in its paws.
yeah, but I think also um, showing the work in progress. Like I got more used to doing that via Instagram, like just
Yep.
development shots or whatever.
Do you
And
find they get an interest, like that people are
yeah,
interested in seeing behind the curtain sort of thing?
yeah, and I think in order to like if you're going to use it as a tool to try and market a show,
Yeah.
have a consistency there and build a following and whatever. Like I get that. I guess I also, because I wanted to structure how the work might be. Like I
Mm.
was like, oh, I don't want to give too much away, or how can I frame this in a way where people are excited but they don't aren't disappointed when they come and see the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I probably overthink everything, but
It's a complex. It's a. Are you aware? Like you seem to have echoed what a lot of people do, and there's certainly a lot of. I've read an article a while ago about a village in Borneo or somewhere, like this really remote village, and everyone in this village has like 8 to 10 Facebook accounts because they compartmentalize their life into different accounts. Like this is only like you were saying, like this is
yeah,
family, this is work. Are you aware of? Because it's a blend, isn't it, of projecting a business face, projecting an overall. Like, are you aware of how much of you? It's it's you, but it's you as a business, you as an artist, you as a
I mean, I'm definitely. I feel like like years ago when I first got Facebook, there was more social chatting on actual public things like people's walls and stuff, and now I just send a private message. I don't ever do that.
yeah,
So I definitely think my relationships to it's changed, but also the platform maybe has changed a bit, or what's the social norms in there. And I also think I was thinking about this the other day, like the different projections of yourself. I also think that's quite a normal thing socially. And when I was a
yeah,
kid, as an incredibly shy child,
yeah,
I was always really anxious when two friends come together because I was acutely aware that I was slightly different the
yeah,
way the way I projected myself with one friend and with another was slightly different.
yes,
And then I just didn't know how to do that when they came together. So I think even in face-to-face social situations,
yeah,
that is a normal thing, like how you project yourself and how you are with people.
yeah,
Um, I like to think as an adult, I'm a little bit less of an anxious person, and like, that acute awareness of how I'm perceived has relaxed
yeah,
slightly, and I can just be the same person all the time,
yeah, yeah,
for the most part. But I do still sometimes notice it.
yeah,
Like, yeah. So I think that that's quite normal. And
yeah. Because there's a relationship between, like you say, promoting your business of, like you say, creating an audience and a following, and which is sort of a self-promotion aspect, but
yeah,
it's also a necessary vehicle through which to show what you're doing as
yeah.
well.
And I think partly I'm also like, I just like making work.
Yeah,
I like having people see their work. I think the more people see the work, the more likely I am to be able to make work in the future.
yeah,
So that's my goal.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Just keep me able to make work.
yeah,
Really,
yeah,
that's the goal.
Just
Not
anyway,
after fame. I'm just after
work.
work.
Yeah, yeah. I hear you. Yeah. I think
Um,
Peter
yeah,
Dunn said if you're still in the industry after 30 years, you can consider yourself a success, or 20 years or something. It's like
yeah,
you've made it that long and you're still working. That's success.
yeah. I think success. It can be a crippling idea. I think
Yeah.
like, and I really do think that that's what it's come down to. It's like, of course, if I get a bad review, it sucks.
Yeah.
But also, I just want to keep making work. And that's the main thing.
Yeah. We live in a very combative culture, very tribal culture. I think that's why um, it's hard for artists to compete, because it's not in our nature to be competitive with each other. It's like you say, making the work,
Hmm.
but it's about but we work in an environment which is tribal and competitive. Funding, the bad
Yeah,
line in a review, or a good
I
line in
mean,
a review, or a
yeah, but I always think as well, like the great reviews are good because you can take that little line out, you put it somewhere to help promote the next thing,
yeah,
and that is a vehicle for
yeah,
getting the next grant application or getting the next show.
yeah,
And so again, it's just the same core desire to keep making
yeah,
work.
yeah, yeah,
But I also think if I'm interested in yeah, I don't know. I also, I don't know. I like to be a generous person. I like to
yeah,
support other people.
yeah,
You know, I'm just, and I think most people in the arts are like that. Like,
yeah,
it's more than one occasion that I've written a support letter for someone and they write a support letter for me, and we all want everyone to get the money.
yeah,
It's just that there's not enough money.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's not really. I'm competing. I don't ever really feel like I'm competing with any of the other
yeah,
dance makers. It's just like, oh well, I didn't get it this time, and you didn't
yeah,
get it. I
yeah.
don't, and it is really just like that kind of persistence, like you say. Like
Do
if
you,
you're still doing it after 20 years,
yeah, you're either
doing something right.
or just insane.
Well,
Probably
probably a bit of both.
both. Yeah. Do you find that you're able to connect with a bigger network online? Like, do you find that there's especially in the last month or so, when we've all kind of been forced to spend more time looking around online and watching different companies doing stuff, have you found that your creative network has expanded in this international opportunity platform, or
Well, what's been really nice is like straight away, Liesl Zink, who's a Brisbane choreographer, she was like, I want to do classes online. Who's interested? And I
mm,
was like, this is really cool because I can invite all my uni friends from the UK and people in the US and
yeah,
people here in Adelaide to do a class that's taking place in Brisbane. And that had a really fun kind of feeling of,
yeah,
we, you know, the contemporary dance. There's like a contemporary dance fashion and contemporary dance culture and a contemporary dance personality that
yeah,
obviously not everyone has, but that is quite global,
yeah,
and we do tend to connect really easily. Like I'm really close friends with a dancer from Singapore because most dancers have just worked all over the world, and
yeah,
it's almost like the culture of that art form is stronger than any particular, like, I don't know,
yeah,
than the cultural difference of where we come from or whatever.
yeah,
So
absolutely,
it feels really nice that there could be that connection. I think in a way, on Instagram for a long time I've noticed that what I really love about it is you can put a hashtag there
yeah,
and then you can search that hashtag. You can find someone from I have heaps of followers and I follow lots of people from, not heaps,
yeah,
but I follow a few people in Russia because they just have a similar aesthetic to my work, and
yeah,
it's really interesting, and it feels very easy to make those connections. And obviously, they're not necessarily going to lead anywhere in terms of work or in terms of people, an audience for people seeing a show live, but out of an interest.
Yeah.
I think that's really fun and exciting. And
Do you not think that there's an opportunity for out of that subculture, that network? I don't want to say network because it sounds so business management speak.
well, I mean, possibly.
I mean,
But I also would be pretty nervous to go, okay, I'm going to fly across the other side of the world and start making work with someone that there'd be a lot of steps before that point.
Oh yeah, but in terms of, is there anyone sort of thinking about, hey, we have a community? I mean, we're all connecting. This is what I find funny. Like, I hear all these anecdotes of people. Oh yeah, we connected and we had a Zoom meeting and it was a really good thing like that. And then I have these conversations, or I read articles by artists that are saying that the online experience is hollow, that it doesn't have the connection, that it doesn't have this. And I'm like, well, everyone is connected and we have these like-minded connections and relationships, and it was cool to get online and join with friends. So there is potential for that human connection that we look for as performing artists to generate in our audience, but we don't seem to be. I'm just curious about how people are starting out in the world to think about that now, because there is conversation about this hollowness of content online.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going, it's sort of, it's sort of like highlighted by the work that you were doing with the live, online play, where it's working to the medium that you're using. Like that live connection and inviting that and creating that and playing with that, that's really exciting to watch online because that's how it's made. And then the idea of watching a live performance that's been recorded and then you're watching it on your small laptop and trying to have the same connection that you would have in the theatre, it's going to fall over because it's just not the same. But of course there are ways to connect that are using the right platform, I feel like for me personally, I've got the projects that I'm currently working on that I really want to fulfill, and they're in various development stages, and they are imagined for the theatre. So I would like to create them for the theatre.
And it does take a while, doesn't it, to learn your form, to learn your craft, like you say, to understand that these things take. We haven't had that. I think that's what this is really exposed. We haven't sort of evolved towards moving this way. There was just a shutdown, and there was no alternative. There was no growth. There was no plan B.
Yeah.
So we're in this kind of.
Yeah, I mean, if it was decided that okay, there's never ever going to be a theatre production, like, we just have to rule out that there'll ever be a 200-seat theatre plus whatever. Well, then, sure, I'll definitely make work for groups of 20 outside for online consumption. But then that's a different project that's imagined in that way for me.
And that's in time too. You've had time to move towards that, realize that worldview.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think when I was studying, I got approached to make a film component for actually for Hans Kreiner, he's a visual artist, and he was doing a performance as part of In Space when In Space was really open to sort of new commissions and had a budget and all that sort of stuff in the good old days.
The halcyon days.
Anyway, I was only 19 when I made that film, but like I really quickly was like, oh, okay. So what film opens up to me is that this work can be anywhere.
Yeah.
So what is it, the work that I want to make that can be anywhere? And at that time, I like danced around in the mall and
in all
different places. And
remember.
yeah. So
Yeah.
for me, the medium that you're using and the performance that gets made out of that have always been really connected. And I've done some works in galleries,
Yeah.
and I initially I was like, when I made 42A, probably my first big work, which was in a gallery, I was very aware that, well, the thing that the gallery has that the theatre doesn't have is that people can move through it and
Yeah.
view the work from any angle. And like I created a whole system of queuing the work by things that people did in the gallery. And
Yeah. Great.
um, did a 6-hour installation where
Yeah.
the dancers were performing, and they had to. That's why it had to be queued so that they could rest and
Yeah.
blah blah. Blah. And then more recently, as there's been more and more performance in galleries, I've sort of dropped that idea a bit and been like, oh well, we'll just create a mini stage in a gallery,
Yeah.
and people can watch from two sides, and But I think it's just the awareness of like, okay, the way that people are going to access the work, how does that shape the work that you make? And,
Yeah.
and I think that, like you say, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously I'm an overthinker, but I'd want to make something that is
Yeah, yeah.
shaped in that way, like you are with the play. Like, I think that's what is the success of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a different form. I think it opens up potentially different stories as well.
Mm.
There are experiences that you can only have had through being online. So you wouldn't even be able to communicate that story or that experience of I don't know, I'm just spitballing, let's say catfish scenario or something like that only exists in an online space. You wouldn't even be able to communicate it anywhere else because it just wouldn't exist there. I
Yeah.
think that's
It,
sorry, go on.
it's just funny to think, I wonder if there was like 16th century catfishing with like people writing letters.
Oh, probably.
I don't
Probably.
know. Obviously it wouldn't have been as common. It's just
Or a bit very long-winded.
it would take a long
A
time.
long time. Which would probably make it even worse when it was revealed because it was so much longer in the process. So, who are your favourite online artists that you're following at the moment? Where do you see in your particular area of contemporary dance? Do you have a category or a classification that you use, or are you classificationless?
I just say contemporary dance because I feel like, well, that's what I've trained in. There
Yeah.
you go.
All
That's why myself like that. Obviously, I do feel pretty connected to the visual art world, having
Yeah.
done a lot of performance in that space.
Well, they're very closely aligned, aren't they? Visual image.
Yeah, particularly at the moment. I think like a while back, that theatre and dance were more aligned. Interestingly,
Yeah.
like when there was a lot more physical theatre, and that might be in Australia as well. But yeah. Anyway, who am I following? I'm just trying to keep up with things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a pretty slow reader, so even just reading articles online, it's like, oh god, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that.
No, I hear you.
I've been enjoying. There's what's it called, the reading room or something like that.
The listening room. The listening.
Room. Yeah, so it's been nice listening to people read online and to have the author of that writing read. I've been enjoying that. I actually, ADT have had the Adapt program where they've just put their shows online.
Yeah.
And being someone who's lived in Adelaide for so long, I thought I'd see more the ADT shows when I realised I had.
Yeah, right.
So I was planning to watch. Sorry, this is boring. I was planning to watch one of their shows and then I missed it because they only had it up for 48 hours. So that's kind of an interesting thing too, like some ways of making things relevant, like because you've only got a certain period of time. But then I I listened to Refuge, which is an arts house program that I've never actually got to because it's in Melbourne and I just haven't got across at that time.
Yeah.
Which I would really like to have seen in their venue because they've been looking at end of the world situations kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
And I think a couple of years ago they had a situation that was based on a pandemic, and so they work with emergency services and artists and cultural leaders to look at what are the resources that we need in these particular situations. So they have fire, flood, pandemic,
Right.
earthquake, and so then they had some online sessions
Who are
with
they?
just
The Refuge? Are they a theatre?
yeah, it's called Refuge. No, it's a project that happens at Arts House
Oh, okay. Arts House.
in Melbourne. Yeah, so it was nice to be able to be involved just by listening in because I haven't actually physically been to it, and I knew that it sounded like a really interesting project, and I know Latai quite well. Latai,
Yeah, right.
anyway, and she's been heavily involved. So that was a good one. I was planning to tune into the substation, had an opening of an artist's work who was meant to be there yesterday, and then I had a visit from my nephews, and that went out the window. I think that's more what's been happening is like I'm like, oh yes, okay, I'll be involved with that, and I put in the diary, and then something in the real world comes up, and I haven't been able to. And I guess if you had a ticket to a show, you go there. Like you don't let the real world things interrupt that.
Yep.
But I found that a lot of the time, these things that I'm excited about have been interrupted. And Next Wave, because Next Wave Festival is cancelled, they've got an online thing today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which I'm really planning to get involved in. But.
And I've noticed that too. Like I've registered for all these webinars, and then like 2 or 3 days later, I've got all these emails saying, "Thanks for joining us on the webinar. Here's the recording." And I go, I missed it."
Yeah. Well, it's good that they send the recording. I mean, that's what I've been finding is often I don't think I've listened live to any of the listening rooms.
Yes.
I'm going to the recording later.
Because,
and that's what it's good about podcasts and stuff as well.
Yeah, because like you say, if you were on the train going to the venue, then what can you do? You can't do anything. But if you're just sitting on your couch and the phone goes or someone knocks on the door, then again, what do you do?
Yeah, and I think there's something interesting about commitment in that because having done earlier in my career, I did a lot of shows that were free entry because I really wanted my work to be accessible to a really broad audience. And I was just like, okay, I'm making this work in the gallery where you can come and go, you can spend as much time as you want. Yeah. It's free entry. Let's reduce all the barriers to accessing art. Let's just come along. Just come along.
Yeah.
And actually having a small fee that you have to pay and you have to commit to and you've got the ticket and you have to be there at a certain time means that you will.
Yes.
So I actually found that the audiences were less to those things where it's like, yeah, just come on in,
Yeah.
So there's something psychologically interesting about that, I think.
Yep, definitely. And I've found it in, it's a commonly known thing in marketing that the price has a meaningful impact on the purchaser simply in as much as if I have to commit more of my money, it must be more worth it.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
The value that we kind of give to things.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's a value in so that's what I like about some of this online potential for artists is that there's other ways of getting income like Patreon, for example. I haven't been able... I mean, you've got to leverage other things like followings and all of that sort of stuff. But they're systems that if you can harness, and I've seen other people have done it, you can kind of... Your work can be given away because you're not charging people for the product. You're not saying, I sold you something, and you're not getting into that argument of the value and worth of something like that because you're not selling a product. You're asking people to say, I am a choreographer, I am a theatre maker. Support me. I'll make work, and you can consume it to your heart's content. It's not about buying the thing I produce.
Being able to produce what I produce.
Me
Yeah.
being able to produce what I do for you. And it
Yeah.
kind of changes the metric of how we think about that. I haven't been able to leverage it yet. I'm not that.
Well, I think that's the interesting thing, right? Because on a conceptual level, that's brilliant.
Yes.
Like, that's great.
Yeah.
Your worth is the fact that you can invest in your practice.
Yeah.
You know, like, you can research, you can develop, and you can create great things. And that's all I ever want to do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, yes, I think an important part of that is having people see it, and, like, for me, and having them engage with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, on a conceptual level, I think it's great. People support your practice, right? But on a practical, like, on a real world level,
Yeah.
unless you're a famous, like, you know, you see that fucking Amanda
Yeah, honey,
Palmer.
love you.
Sorry, I shouldn't swear.
No, you're right.
But so a few people have mentioned to me that Amanda Palmer TED talk about valuing yourself and valuing your practice, and I'm like, yeah, okay, great. But you are already an established performer, like,
Yeah.
in music, which is the most mainstream art form, let's face it,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. And you have a very consumable thing.
Yeah.
The people just
Yeah.
are like, oh yeah, I can understand that if I give you $20 and that helps you, you know, like, I don't know. And you already have a name for yourself. I just feel like that,
Yeah.
but the difference between that and my particular interest in abstract contemporary dance work,
Yeah.
and unless you have wealthy friends, I feel like,
Yeah. Or unless you are, and this is where it gets back into, I struggle with, in many respects, I'm in the wrong industry because I'm not a self-promoter. I'm not interested in self-promotion.
but also it takes so much time and energy.
Yes.
Like, I was talking to actually my producer, because I've talked to him about this a few times.
Yeah.
And what I've decided with Patreon is I'm just going to have it sitting there.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, okay, I only have one tier, or I have like $5 tier and I have $50 tier or something.
Yeah.
And you get the same thing. It's just you want to support me to make work.
Yeah.
And I just have it sitting there in case one day someone with money goes, I love what you do. How can I give you money?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I'm not going to put any effort into it, because my producer said to me, there's companies that have a full-time staff member who is only doing philanthropy, and they're trying to get money for a company that already has a name, that has, like, all these connections, and they still don't get enough money to cover their work. And then that makes me go, what is the freaking point when I'm trying to make work, you know, pay my own rent, do all this other stuff?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm busy enough as it is. Do I
Yeah.
really need to, like, hawk my wares online? And also, when I've had to do those, like, I did a whatever one of those crowdfunding things was years ago, and I just felt like I was begging from my friends. Like,
yes.
It felt horrible.
Yeah.
And it didn't work either. Like, we ended up putting all of our wages into there so we could meet the target, so that we could get $800 back. You know, like, okay, great, we got $800. That's not nothing, but
no, but it's not what you need either.
It's
not
really hard,
and it's a lot of effort. It's a lot of effort, and it is, and it gets back to that value for effort again thing, doesn't it? Like, you try and get out of it.
Overdoing that stuff, like, I still sometimes I just did. I'd rather work in an office and then just save my pennies.
People say that similar things to me all the time. Oh, you understand social media. You understand. You could do this. You could do that. It's like, and I keep trying to say to them, like, if I spent all my time doing that, I wouldn't be spending any time making the shit I'm trying to sell in the first place. I'd have nothing to sell.
Exactly. And I just want to be a really good artist.
Yeah.
And I know that I need to spend a lot of time working on that in order to do that. I don't really want to be a really good social media marketer.
No.
So I don't want to spend all my time doing that.
No.
And some people are passionate about marketing, and that's their job, and that's brilliant. that they do that really
Yep.
well.
Do
That's
that
not
for
my
me.
problem. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I also understand that potentially sounds really self-absorbed, but whatever.
No, totally. No, you can't be all things to all people. We juggle enough as it is.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Sorry.
No,
That's a
no,
pretty
no.
rant.
No,
Amanda
totally.
Palmer.
I've been struggling. No, I've been struggling with that myself. Like I've been doing this thing for 6 months. I've been studying this for 7 years. I've been ticking away at it slowly. I've done all the I've out of all the things I've learned and read, I've applied all the techniques. Like that, like you've seen Nikki's Jenna Britton Instagram character, and
Yeah.
like that. If nothing else, that has been a vehicle for us to explore how hashtags work, how groups work, and all of that sort of stuff. So I've applied all of that knowledge. I'm in a unique field. I'm doing it, and I haven't been getting anything from the social media side. I don't. Obviously, I'm not doing that right, and I've invested. But at the same time, I don't know.
It's so hard to have cut through. Like,
Yeah.
that's why marketing is hard, period. And when it
Yes.
used to only be like posters on the wall, it's still like there's so much visual noise in a public space.
Yes.
And then you think about noise online, it's massive. So,
That's why I call this Call of the Void, because it's just like a big hollow pit that you just scream into. And just throw all your noise and all your images into this big pit of void of blah. And
yeah.
maybe
I mean, right, people, if you, I don't know, like, some videos go viral and then they make people billions, but it's almost like
yeah.
less likely than it winning the lottery kind of thing.
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah, yeah. So it
Just-
gets back to, and I was talking to someone about this the other day, that that in all the stuff that all the consultants I've read, all the bits and pieces about how to live stream, how to blog, all these people. There's so many consultants out there. This cracks me up. This is like people who write books on how to get rich. They get rich because they wrote the book on how to do it. You know what I mean? Like, there's all these consultants out there telling you how to. They're making money by telling you how to do it, not necessarily doing it themselves in this weird way. And I don't know where I was going with that, but it's at the heart of it, they all come back to, you pick your platform, you pick your regularity, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, whatever, you pick your thing and you stick to it based on what you want to communicate. And that always comes back down to that point, even when they're trying to sell you all this stuff. What do you want to communicate? What do you want to communicate? What do you want to communicate? And I think that's kind of a resonant question that I certainly struggle with online, because I do want to communicate, but then I feel like if I'm just communicating and no one's listening, like any performer, if I'm performing and no one's watching and I've got all the little blank screens on my Zoom meeting, then what am I doing? Am I just screaming?
It's a confusing thing. I mean, I think, yeah.
It's a bit of an existential crisis.
It is a bit. It's sort of like, yeah. I mean, but like you say, you've been studying it for 7 years, so you've got to find there's interest in it in other ways. Like, you have enough interest in it, regardless of whether or not someone's whether or not
certainly
popular or whatever. Like, there's interest on there somewhere for you.
Oh, definitely, certainly. For me, it's probably one of the most creatively stimulating periods of my whole career. Like, just in terms of, like you say, trying to understand the platform that I'm creating with, the stories that I can tell with it, how I can tell them. Like, it's just, because it's uncharted territory creatively, it's been a roller coaster of a ride, emotionally, intellectually, and all the rest of it. But that's actually the stimulating part about it, trying to crack that riddle, solve that problem, how can I do it? You know, so yeah, definitely. Creatively, I still love the theatre. It's my bread and
Yeah.
butter, all the rest of it. But there's a creative challenge to trying to crack this nut
Yeah.
that is,
Sure.
yeah, I'm really
I
loving
think
it.
what's also interesting, I was just thinking then, like, I'm feeling a lot more relaxed sitting here having this conversation with you
Yeah,
than if we were in, like in a panel discussion in front of 200 people, although people might like, so people can come and access that conversation and they can choose to come or go.
yeah,
But there's something interesting about that, like the conversation that we can have here,
yeah,
which is accessible to however many people want to join online
yeah,
versus, we've all been to things like at Writers Week or whatever where they have that discussion, and you are trying to create like an intimate discussion between people. But
yes,
yeah, so I don't know. There's something interesting about that and the benefit of that in this platform as well.
yeah,
And then the other thing that I thought about was, um, I wonder if it's really different for someone who is a complete extrovert and
yeah,
wants to have every single part of their life online, and
yeah,
it's just natural for them, so they don't need to overthink it. Like I do have a friend who she's sort of an influencer of
yeah,
sorts, and I don't think she's well, I don't know. It'd be interesting to talk to her about how much she actively shapes that and how much she's just a gregarious kind of outgoing person
yeah.
that is happy to have
Well,
anything.
and that was sort of the subject of the very first lunch with Jenna about that. It was because there were a couple of other characters then who were also online influencers, and it was about that um, line between friendship when friendship becomes a business model. You know,
Yeah.
like how much of this. And another friend of mine who watched it was saying, I thought you were writing about my life because I had a really good friend from high school. She suddenly became a social influencer, and it just invaded every part of their relationship. So they couldn't even
Exactly.
go out to coffee anymore without something being Instagrammed or snapped or this or that or whatever. And so,
It's kind of the same as the pyramid scheme, right? Like if
yeah,
you ever have a friend who starts selling Nutrimetics or
yeah,
XYZ, they become obsessed, and that's becomes what your friendship is about, and then everything is like an opportunity to try and sell that product,
yeah,
and it's really corrosive and just destroys the friendship.
yeah,
And I think, or it has like the potential to, and I think that maybe that's a similar thing.
yeah, yeah,
Everything's like an opportunity. I don't find that of my friend who I was thinking of
yeah,
at all. Like I think she's quite a genuine person, and I just think she has fun with it and it has worked for her.
yeah,
But I do know another person. I actually went to a friend's wedding in India, and she came along with another friend. I don't know her very well, but literally all she did every 5 minutes was just another selfie, and she spent 2 hours doing her makeup, and everything that she
mm,
cared about was in her appearance.
mm,
And what a life!
yeah,
Oh my god, what a
yeah,
meaningless life!
yeah. Yes, yes, meaningless, but at the same time, it obviously meant a lot to her.
Yeah, I guess so.
You know, so it did have. That's the thing that I find interest. They're the stories I find interesting that exist in online, because
Yeah.
that was meaningful to her. She had, and that was one of the things we discussed in that play as well. That one of the characters was saying, you know, I do feel a relationship to my 10,000 fans who I've never met, simply by virtue of the effort that I've put into building that fan base and building that audience. Like there's a relationship to that, you know, been over time, it's been over conversations and all of those things. So
Oh, and
yeah,
also, like, I'm sure that the if people really follow it closely, like, imagine if they just stopped, if that person just suddenly stopped being online,
yeah,
all of those, well, a lot of those followers would probably be really upset.
Yeah,
That they feel like there's a grieving process that, they're missing something that they had been connected to for years
yeah.
or whatever.
And we found that with Jenna as well. There are people who they log on every, like Nikki posts consistently every morning, that regular time thing. And there are people that jump on because they know that's when she's going to be there deliberately. And
Yeah, and
there
that
are,
was what was really interesting, like how taxing that is on like on Nikki as the performer
yeah.
to maintain that character.
Oh, yeah, I ask her that, because that's the only time she spends on it all day. She
Yeah.
doesn't go back through the day and follow it up or anything like that. It's just about that consistency in posting. She might spend a bit longer doing a few shout outs or, a few things like that. There's a bit of customer relationship or audience relationship that needs to go on and reply to things like that.
Yeah.
But generally, she's pretty perfunctory about it. And as much as she's kind of steered the character's also been steered by the audience that it's been attracting,
Yeah.
there's this kind of relationship between who they are. Yeah, it's been. But when we were doing the show's lunch with Jenna, because that's when we created the avatar, and Nikki was using the avatar as a vehicle to say that like the show's on, come and watch it, blah blah blah. There were people who were following her who knew it was Nikki playing Jenna, and there were people that were following her who didn't know she was anyone else except Jenna.
Yeah.
And some of those people found out she was an actor and got really upset.
Yeah.
And some people, it's almost like they didn't want to know, like they just didn't engage. Like Jenna is something that lives in their consciousness, and that's the relationship they want to have with Jenna. They don't want to know about the rest of it. Okay, I'm aware that she might be. I'm aware that Dame Edna might be Barry Humphries, but I'm not interested in Barry Humphries. I only want to know Dame Edna.
It's so interesting. I did a show in a theater once
Yeah,
where I said I had an eidetic memory and that I could remember everything perfectly. And then I performed this show that I'd seen 5 years earlier.
yeah,
And I had these reactions in the foyer afterwards. A couple of people who realized that I didn't have that condition felt like they'd been lied to. And I was like, this is the construct of the theater. You were sitting in a theater
yeah,
and you're still like really angry with me that I've lied to you.
yeah, yeah,
I don't know what to tell you. Like,
yeah.
it's
Because
so interesting how quickly that can happen.
suspension of disbelief is a choice on behalf of the audience member. They choose to go. They choose to go. Yeah, I'm in the theater. And I find that distinction much more online, especially with some of these people, is that
Yeah,
they,
and I imagine that they would just go, okay, well, Curry online.
yeah,
So why is Jenna Britton someone else in the non-online world? Maybe that's that kind of fear of the catfishing thing, or
yeah. And some people across her audience, fans, whatever you want to frame it, there is a range of people who are more or less engaged. Some of them choose to not, or their choice. Some of them know, like some people know that there's Nikki playing Jenna and they still follow her, like friends and family and all the rest of it. Some
yeah,
of those people have not followed her because
yeah,
of that. Some people who have followed her as Jenna and then discovered that she's an actor have kept with that. Others have discovered and left, like opposite reasons. Like some of them
yeah.
are friends of Nikki, some of them are friends of Jenna, and they've each found out about the other.
Yeah.
It's this kind of weird
Yeah,
universe.
and I wonder, like, if Jenna was to get massive, I mean, I guess that's how people that start as maybe that's how people start off as catfishes. Like they're like, oh, this character's doing really well, and then they get a private message, and then they're like, oh yeah, I'd
Yeah,
love to meet you, and then it's like you've deceived someone, but you
yeah.
maybe hadn't intended to. That's pretty interesting, actually. That
There's a great YouTube clip. Um, oh, let me find. What's his name? Usha. hang on, I'll see if I can find it for you quickly, because it's right. What this guy did, right? It was about 4 or 5 years ago. He was a reviewer on TripAdvisor. I'll find it for you and send it to you. It'll take too long now. But he was a reviewer on TripAdvisor, and through that, like, his job was to post reviews of restaurants for people. He was paid to do it. Yep. And he got this idea once. He said, "I wonder if I could make my backyard into London's top restaurant."
Oh yeah, I've seen that article.
You know,
Hilarious.
it's brilliant. But I was watching it again the other day, and I went, until he decided to edit the video and post it as a YouTube thing, there was no audience. Do you know what I mean? Who was he performing to? He wasn't
I knew the story that there was these really high reviews for this restaurant, and then more and more people kept chiming in, almost like they wanted to have been seen at the top restaurant, even though it didn't exist.
Yep.
This is the thing? Yeah.
Basically, just for 3 months, him and a few mates, the rest of it, and for about 3 months, every time someone rang the phone, and he got a burner phone, every time someone rang the phone, he said, "Sorry, we're booked out. Sorry, we're booked out. Sorry, we're booked out." And so that just moved it up and up the rankings, until it got to a point he had so many people contacting him, he thought, "I've got to do something soon." So he staged in his backyard, like share house backyard. You can imagine what they're like. And he staged this restaurant with his mates in there, and the whole thing was, so the waiters served you based on on emotions and feelings. So people would come in blindfolded, sit in his rusty old backyard with chooks running everywhere and all the rest of it, long grass.
He actually ran a restaurant.
Yep,
I
actually
didn't
did it for one night. And the food was literally microwave meals, pot noodles, things like that. So he made this.
Job as a reviewer.
This is the thing. He made by this stage, the exclusivity level of the restaurant was sky high. It was all very unique, and he said this particular one, he got, like, you get those stews in a can sort of thing, and you heat them up, and so they sold it to the customers as home cooking, like home, the sort of cooking you had when you were a kid, sort of thing, and they served it up, garnished it a little bit, and everyone was coming, "Oh, this is just like when I was a child. How did you get the recipe so right?" Da, 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 da. No one had any idea at all. Not until he closed the whole thing down and then went public and launched the video. And it made me realise that for 6 months or so, he was doing this performance, this kind of installation performance across media and all the rest of it, and there was no audience. No one was in on the joke apart from him and his few mates. It only became a performance after it was published as a short film, like a little doco. And that sort of made me like...
You would have got so many violent reactions.
Oh yeah, it was huge. It went off. They show at the end of the doco some of the interviews.
There's an interesting thing, like... Sorry, go on.
Oh no, I was just going to say, I bring that up because I was relating it to that idea of, like, the hidden theatre. Like, there are audiences who don't want to know that they're being deceived, or they want to live in the fantasy of the character they think they're following, or the case of the couple who thought you had that memory. There's this choice when you of whether you suspend your disbelief or not, and some people choose not to disbelieve, go there, knowing that it exists. And some people don't choose because they didn't know there was a choice to be made in the first place.
I think that's what it was. They just fully believed me.
Yeah.
Didn't realize there was any suspension there, and then were angry when...
Because there's so much verbatim theatre and stuff around anyway. It could be legit.
I also... I have a friend who's a visual artist who works in large inflatables and often in public space.
Yeah.
And he was saying that... he's had some really violent reactions in public space.
Yeah.
As people, like, he had one work that was essentially a huge water slide in the centre of Sydney.
Yeah.
And he had someone come up to him when he was packing it down or setting it up or something and just say, like, oh, what's this promoting? And was fine when he thought it was advertising. And then he was told that, oh, no, it's actually an artwork. And he just got really aggressive about it being an artwork because he didn't feel like he could understand and frame why it was there or what it was doing and how he was supposed to engage with it. And somehow that questioning like made him, I don't know what it is, I'm not a psychoanalyst, but like something about the questioning of what the role was or what he was supposed to do made him so angry.
Wow.
Like, just that insecurity or something, I don't know, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. How fragile people are.
It is too, and I find I've got so many stories about things that have happened online where these, like there was someone who was following Nikki as Jenna. He was obviously really infatuated. He was a real big fan, sort of thing. And then somehow or another, I can't remember how it all unfolded now, but somehow or another he discovered that she was Nikki and not Jenna, and he just went cold. Just went absolutely cold. Like
one thing I can imagine, she could get death threats. Like
we've had some pretty. There's been a couple. We've learned a lot very quickly.
Yeah.
But I this is for me where I say it's research. I mean, we can't tell people's stories unless we know how people live in the world, and the only way we can know how they live in the world is if we go and live in there with them. So we've learned a lot, and which has been great because now we can pass on a lot, and especially to our kids and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that's what I mean. There's a whole of how humans are interacting and engaging out there, and stories that are only living in this space that just have, as human beings, we've never been able to experience these stories before, let alone tell them. So that's why I'm still just super hyped about all of this stuff, because it's a whole new world. I'll go and write a musical about that. Hey, thank you very much, Alison. It's been awesome to catch up with you again.
Yeah, you too. Sorry, I was just doing my online musical.
No, it's all right. I'm going to edit that in the highlights.
Good catch up, and enjoy it.
Take care, and we'll catch up soon. I hope, maybe at a pub one day.
Yeah, that'd be good. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
There we go. Another show. Stay tuned for the highlights. Coffee o'clock for me. I'm going to do a little sign out with a little music, just so you're not left in the lurch. See you in 2 weeks on the 5th of June. Bye. And their feathers and their scales are in the bread. You should tell them that. Oh, you should just tell them. Chicken feathers and put in the white bread. Does that mean we're eating dinosaur scales?
No, because scales aren't feathers.
But scales are the remnants. No, feathers are the remnants of scales.